Hello. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi has died. The 57-year-old, who'd been seriously ill for several months, had been in power since 1991. The country's Deputy Prime Minister, Haile Mariam Desalegn, has stepped in as interim leader. Our correspondent Peter Grester looks back at his political career.
Meles Zenawi, the Democrat, casting his vote in the poll that made him Ethiopia's first popularly elected head of state. It was supposed to be a defining moment for Meles, a historic step on his own path from rebel commander to legitimate national leader. Instead, it came to symbolize the former revolutionary's deep contradictions. Protesters said the polls had been rigged. Meles' troops killed almost 200 people. Human rights groups say between 30 and 50,000 more were imprisoned without charge. Meles crushed his opponents with a ruthlessness that he learned as a guerrilla leader decades earlier. In 1991, Meles' Tigrayan People's Liberation Front forced the military dictator Mengistu Haile Mariam to flee after a 17-year war. Meles became leader, appointed by the Council of Representatives that he chaired, and the country entered a period of stability. But in 1998, a border dispute between Ethiopia and Eritrea broke into open conflict. Eritrea described Meles' strategy as total war, and it degenerated into a grinding battle across the trenches. The war ended 3 years later, and the Prime Minister worked hard to burnish his international reputation as one of the new generation of African leaders that the West could do business with. Meles presented himself as an economic reformer. He managed to reduce child mortality by 40% and limited the damage caused by perennial droughts. He worked closely with Tony Blair, then Britain's Prime Minister, on the Commission for Africa, a group tasked with ending the continent's dependence on aid.
We are coming to London to work together with others to create the political will to implement the solutions that we all think can help Africa.
He also made himself indispensable as a strategic partner for the West when he sent his troops into neighboring Somalia to help put down an insurgency by the Islamic Courts Union.
We have with the United States long-standing arrangements to share intelligence on terrorist activities in the neighborhood.
But the Ethiopian incursion had a domestic purpose as well. It helped Meles crush his own ethnic Somali separatist movement, and it diverted criticism from his continued suppression of political dissent. So by the time the next elections came around in 2010, most opposition had vanished, his critics were silenced, and Meles' party claimed more than 99% of the seats in parliament. It was a victory that cemented his place in the pantheon of African leaders as a man with a modern approach to economics, but an old-fashioned approach to autocratic rule.
Nazanin Mashiri is on the line from Mogadishu with more now. Nazanin, thanks for being with us. What more can you tell us about the circumstances surrounding the Ethiopian Prime Minister's death? Because we know that he hasn't been seen in public for at least a month.
We know very little, and it's very, very difficult to get any information from the Ethiopian authorities, who have been very quiet while Meles Zenawi has been missing, and now that he's actually died. But we understand from speaking to them that he passed away at around 11:45 last night. That's Ethiopian time, so that's 8:45 GMT. Now, where it happened, well, we don't know whether it happened in Ethiopia, or there are numerous reports that Meles actually travelled to Europe for medical treatments, even in Belgium, in a certain hospital called St. Luke Hospital, which is what various news agencies were reporting at the time. We know that we hadn't seen Meles Zenawi in public since the G20 summit in Mexico, and he was not a man who would not appear at summits. And the key really was when he didn't appear at the African Union summit held in Addis Ababa. That was when people got very, very concerned, started getting very, very concerned about his condition.
And Nazanin, you've reported extensively from this region. What kind of an impact did he have as a leader, not only in Ethiopia, but throughout East Africa?
I think this will be a big loss for the region. I mean, Ethiopia, although it doesn't contribute much financially to the African Union, in terms of Meles Zenawi's role, in terms of he himself as the strong man of East Africa, he has managed to play a sort of balancing role in the region. He also sent troops twice into Somalia. There are currently troops in Somalia, Ethiopian troops, which are battling the Somali armed group Al-Shabaab. He's also been very instrumental and key in mediating between South Sudan and Sudan as well. He had a huge influence in this region, really very well respected in terms of his diplomatic abilities. And I think a lot of regional leaders here will be very concerned about the security of this area now that he's gone.
All right, Nazanin Moshiri, live for us in Mogadishu on the death of Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. And we will, of course, have more on that story later in the program. Let's move on now to